Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about the blog post for week 3 in BCM241 Media Ethnographies. There's quite a lot to do this week. After having nominated your media niche and then begun to map the field of relations connected to your media niche, in this post, you're going to start to plan out your research process for the semester. So the third blog post has 3 equally important elements that you need to address. The first is the problematization of your approach to conducting a media ethnography. The second is a research plan in which you're going to detail your use of observation and autoethnographic methods. And the third is the schedule of research or the research protocol that you're going to use to collect data each week in your field site. So the first step then is to address the issue of problematization. This is where you explain what the particular issue or angle or perspective or complication that you're focusing on for your media ethnography. Now, this might change over time, so that's fine. Remember, you're not locked in 100%. You might find that as you're doing data research, you might find as you're taking field notes, for example, in week 6 and week 7, something else is starting to occur to you that you might want to focus on for your research. But it's important to start out with, you're not just giving a report about this field site. You're trying to find an interesting angle into the field site that you want to investigate further. Connected to this is explaining how you think the research, particularly the media ethnography, will help us to better understand the niche. And we'll talk more about this as we're going through, but it's great if you could start to think about, okay, what am I doing here? How can I inform my audience to better understand this field beyond the kind of just general understanding? Now, this is connected to the question of who is your audience. Who's the audience, particularly for your digital artifact? Is your audience for people who are totally unfamiliar with the niche and is maybe a way of getting them introduced to it and getting them interested in it? Is your audience perhaps practitioners and workers in this niche, and you're addressing issues in that niche that you think that they might be able to help you address and change for the better in the future? Is your audience perhaps potential employers and companies and organizations that you want to work with, and that you can use this as part of your CV to promote yourself as having an expertise in this area? So think clearly about who you regard as your potential audience. Again, don't have to be locked in, but you have to be showing that you're thinking about this in your blog post. Consider what kind of new experiences you might explore in your media niche, right? So you've identified that you have an interest. You've identified that you have an expertise. You have identified that you are familiar with this niche. But now, through autoethnography and observation, you have to dig deeper and you have to start to think about what kind of new experiences you might have with this media niche that will create interesting data for your field notes for you to analyze further. The trick with this is to make the familiar unfamiliar. When you're taking your notes about how you access a podcast or how you share elements of a K-pop drama on social media or whatever it is, think about what you're doing. Think about the details and the specifics of what's actually involved in the process, in the steps. Think about it as if you are trying to explain the experience to a non-human alien, right? Someone from a different planet. And think about all the minute elements that you would have to explain in order for them to get a sense of what you're talking about. Then again, start to connect this to the potential paradigmatic framework or theoretical lens that may help you identify a new trajectory for your research, right? A new problematization for your research. So this is where you can start to say, oh, okay, look, I really understand how a focus on production values will help me understand how podcasts are put together in this genre, or thinking about the issues related to the representation of child death in true crime fiction and mental health. Right? It doesn't matter what it is, because it's unique to you, because this is an autoethnography. But you have to start thinking about what are the theoretical and analytical means for analyzing your data and making sense of your data. Okay, the second part is the research plan. Now, this can be quite brief. Remember, effective use of dot points, short summaries, images, timelines, visualizations, for example, in your blog posts. We're not assessing these as essays. They're meant to be effective, interesting, engaging mediation of your research trajectory. So here you explain exactly what you are going to do in your research. Talk a little bit more about that. How are you going to use observation and autoethnography to create new knowledge? How are you going to record your field notes? Are you going to take handwritten notes as you explore? Are you going to use screenshots? Are you going to stream your experience via, YouTube or Twitch? Are you going to, say, do like a weekly session of note taking followed by a kind of 5-minute audio recording of the summary of your experience? And again, connecting these ideas about, like, again, you have to be locked in, but again, thinking about how the kinds of different theoretical lenses might help you make sense of this data. So we're going from the general to the specific here. So the final part is the research schedule. And that is what you are going to do each week to experience your niche and record your notes. This is also called the research protocol. So include what you're going to do each week, when, for how long, how you're going to do it, what technologies you're going to use. For example, let's say you are exploring the process of creating playlists on Spotify. So for your research plan, you're going to focus on a different part of that experience each week. First week's going to be basic. You're just going to take notes about what it is that you have to go through in order to create a playlist. What buttons do you have to click? What does the interface look like? How easy is it to operate? Do you need to have a paid account? Can you do it on your mobile phone? Do you have to use a certain operating system? Do you have to use a certain browser? We're talking real deep, specific data here that you're going to collect in your field journal. Having done that process, are you going to use a short video, maybe like this, just to record that experience to come back and analyze later? So that might be in week 5. Then in week 6, you're going to focus on how to share your playlists across social media and what the response is to that sharing. So where are you sharing it? Are you sharing it on Twitter? Are you sharing it on Facebook? Are you sharing it on Reddit? Are you sharing it under a particular fan group? Are you sharing it to your mum or to your friends? Whatever. How does that process work? How does that sharing make you feel? What is are you creating a playlist simply for exercise or for study or for sharing with someone else to do study? Specifics. So that's week 2. You're taking notes about that, or week 6 or whatever. You're taking notes about that, and you're doing a revision at the end of it. Okay, week 7. Let's start exploring the playlists of others. Now, this is a bit tricky because you don't want to share exactly what the content is, because you don't have permission to do that. But you can explain and you can take notes about what the experience is of engaging with other people's playlists. Where did you get access to them? How did they share them with you? What was the experience like? What do you do if you find a playlist that someone gives you boring? What do you do if you think it's great, but you could change 1 or 2 tracks? Then in the 4th week of research, you might start looking more broadly. How are other people sharing playlists and using playlists as a content medium in itself more broadly? So now you've got 4 weeks of detailed observations about engaging with playlists. And then you can start to use different paradigms for thinking about how to analyze that data. Maybe you take a kind of critical economy approach and think about how playlists, particularly through the use of Spotify, are a form of free labor that Spotify gets to then turn into intellectual property in order to sell you better advertising, and so on and so on. So lots to do, lots to think about in this blog post. So keep it as concise as possible, keep it as detailed as possible, and remember, all of this material is building up to your pitch proposal for your pitch videos that you'll be presenting in weeks 6 and 7, but also it'll be structuring the research that you're going to be doing going forward. Really looking forward to reading these posts this week. So I will see you next time.